On September 19, 1944, at 06:15 hours, close to Ericourt in eastern France, dense morning mist enveloped the Lorraine landscape as the Panthers from the 113th Panzer Brigade pushed forward to their targets. The brigade's after-action summary, submitted to 5th Panzer Army headquarters around 06:20 hours, described how the vanguard units ran into hostile tank destroyers of an unidentified model. These foe machines showed remarkable agility, striking at our tanks from distances of 400 to 800 meters before swiftly relocating. The first clash led to the destruction of 3 Panthers in under 5 minutes. Amid the haze, crews in the German tanks picked up an unfamiliar noise, a shrill engine whine reminiscent of a plane's motor. Dim, low-slung shapes emerged from the obscurity, unleashed quick bursts of fire, and disappeared before the German gunners could swing their turrets around to respond. Each skirmish unfolded in fewer than 20 seconds. That day across the field of battle, 39 tanks from the 113th Panzer Brigade, led by Colonel Erich Fonsendorf, were on the verge of uncovering a horrifying reality. The Americans had engineered a tank destroyer capable of hitting 55 miles per hour, outpacing every other tracked armored fighting vehicle ever built, whereas German strategy viewed tank destroyers as sluggish, thickly plated strongholds akin to their own Jag Panthers. The M18 Hellcat embodied an entirely fresh approach. Velocity served as protection, quickness ensured endurance, and nimbleness delivered deadly force. The equations governing armored warfare stood ready for a profound overhaul. A Panther's turret required 18 to 60 seconds for a complete turn, varying with engine output. In contrast, the Hellcat's hydraulic system spun its turret a full 360 degrees in merely 24 seconds, regardless of engine revolutions. Traveling at 55 mph, the M18 could traverse 400 meters before a Tiger tank's turret managed even 90 degrees. This shift originated in December 1941, when Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Davis Bruce presented a secret proposal to the War Department. The overwhelming triumphs of German blitzkrieg methods had upended traditional warfare concepts. Poland succumbed in just 35 days. France, boasting the globe's mightiest army, crumbled after 6 weeks. The Wehrmacht's panzer units had demonstrated that swift movement and focused power could overwhelm any fixed position. As a cavalry officer trained in the merits of pace and flanking, Bruce suggested a bold alternative. Rather than countering German armor with equivalent weight and firepower, the U.S. would craft a machine that pursued enemy tanks like old-school cavalry chasing foot soldiers, relying on velocity, ambush, and unmatched maneuverability. The tank destroyer units would adhere to a straightforward creed: seek, strike, destroy. In December 1941, the U.S. Ordnance Department outlined demands for a high-speed tank destroyer. Throughout 1942, the specs advanced quickly, starting with a 37mm cannon, progressing to 57mm, then 75mm, and settling on the 76mm gun. The Christie suspension was evaluated but replaced with torsion bars. Come April 1943, Buick's T-70 prototype achieved velocities that defied belief for something on tracks. When German spies caught wind of U.S. tank destroyer progress, they wrote it off as classic Yankee foolishness. Wehrmacht principles, validated over 4 years of war, insisted that viable tank destroyers demanded robust plating and potent weaponry, such as the 88mm equipped Jag Panthers, tipping the scales at 46 tons. The notion of a 17.7-ton American creation with no more than 25mm of armor struck them as tactically ridiculous. On May 23, 1944, amid the Anzio breakout, the Hermann Göring Panzer Division faced its initial M18 encounters in the surrounding battles. The unit's daily log to the 14th Panzer Corps observed, "Foe deploys novel tank destroyer variant. Estimated speed, 70 to 80 km/h. 2 Panzer IVs knocked out prior to enemy retreat. Countershots proved futile owing to target's swift evasion. German operators described machines that behaved unlike any in their identification guides, sleek forms darting over the terrain at paces more fitting for wheeled scouts than tracked platforms bearing 76mm ordnance." These accounts made their way to Berlin, where officials archived them as unverified and probably inflated. The German leadership figured battle-hardened troops were inflating threats amid the pressures of fight. September 1944 delivered the complete ruinous enlightenment. The U.S. Third Army's push through Lorraine had pulled German lines to the brink of collapse. Hitler himself commanded a riposte to reclaim Nancy and shatter Patton's vanguard. 5th Panzer Army, directed by General Hasso von Manteuffel, gathered its premier forces, including the brand-new 111th and 113th Panzer Brigades, outfitted with pristine Panthers. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, linked to the 4th Armored Division's Combat Command A, had deployed their M18s near Aricourt. As daybreak pierced the thick fog on September 19th, the German assault unfolded. Lieutenant Edwin Leiper's M18 platoon delivered strikes of ruthless accuracy. Per the 704th's after-action report, during the engagement at Aricourt, Lieutenant Leiper's unit clashed with hostile armored forces from distances ranging between 400 and 800 yards. Utilizing hit-and-run maneuvers, they eliminated 15 adversary tanks in roughly 30 minutes of intense fighting. On the unit's edge, Sergeant Henry R. Hartman's M18 delivered remarkable results. His loader took out 6 Panthers one after another, shifting to fresh spots each time to evade counterattacks from German armor. For his bravery, Hartman earned the Distinguished Service Cross afterward. The 113th Panzer Brigade endured devastating setbacks. According to German division logs, the brigade confronted foe tank destroyers around Aricourt. Opposing machines displayed exceptional agility. Reported velocity exceeded 80 kilometers per hour. Casualties included 39 tanks knocked out and 11 impaired. Foe casualties were gauged at 3 to 4 units. In November 1944, when German troops seized a complete M18 close to Metz, Wehrmacht evaluation specialists performed a detailed inspection. Their analysis, sent to the Panzer Force's chief inspector, exposed details that upended conventional views on tank destroyer construction. Confirmed details: mass of 17.7 metric tons compared to the Panther's 44.8 tons. Top velocity of 88 km/h validated on a proving ground, surpassing the Panther's 46 km/h limit. Power plant, Wright R975C4 radial engine with 400 horsepower. Subsequent variants yielded a power-to-weight figure of 22.6 horsepower per ton, outpacing the Panther's 15 and the Tiger V's 12.8 horsepower per ton. Turret rotation, full 360 degrees in 24 seconds via hydraulic system. Protection, up to 25 mm on turret face, 13 mm on hull flanks. Primary weapon, 76 mm M1A1 or M1A2. Drivetrain, Torque-Matic automatic with 3 forward gears. The German assessment wrapped up by stating, "This machine attains its capabilities via a radical engineering approach. Defensive plating is minimized to prioritize speed. The motor is an aviation-derived air-cooled radial unit. The self-shifting gearbox removes the need for manual shifting, allowing the operator to focus on navigation. Battlefield utility relies solely on swiftness and operator skill." The M18's superiority was mathematically undeniable. German heavy tank turret turns relied on engine revolutions per minute and fluctuated widely. Tiger V at 6 to 19 degrees, taking 60 to 19 seconds for a complete circle. Early Panthers at 6 degrees, requiring 60 seconds. Later Panthers reaching 19 degrees at 2,000 RPM, down to 19 seconds. Tiger II from 15 to 24 degrees, 24 to 15 seconds total. In contrast, the M18's hydraulic system held steady at 15 degrees, irrespective of engine output, vital for handling several threats or pursuing swift foes. Reaching 55 mph, an M18 could cover 400 meters in 16 seconds, 800 meters in 33 seconds, or traverse a 1,000-meter danger zone in 41 seconds. A Panther, meanwhile, required 30 to 60 seconds for a mere 180-degree turret shift while following a shifting target. The M18's use transformed U.S. anti-armor strategies. Post-Aricourt, the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion revised its field guide to stress rapid movement rather than prolonged shootouts. Suggested procedure: unleash 3 to 5 shots from hidden cover, then relocate at least 200 yards right away. Strike again from a fresh vantage at an altered bearing. Avoid halting for over 60 seconds under enemy sight. This hit-and-relocate strategy inflicted severe damage. German crews, drilled in careful ranged confrontations, struggled against rivals who dodged fixed battles. On December 19, 1944, the German Ardennes du Push, Hitler's final throw, entered its third day. The 2nd Panzer Division, leading the thrust toward Antwerp, neared the key intersection at Noville, defended by Team Desabrès and parts of the 101st Airborne Division. 4 M18s from the 609th and 705th Tank Destroyer Battalions confronted superior numbers. Morning mist, which had masked German advances, now aided the Hellcats. Per the 705th's after-action summary, 4 M18s tangled with 2nd Panzer elements in misty weather, using quick repositioning amid shots to simulate a bigger guard force. Reports confirmed the presence of enemy M18 tank destroyers, which could achieve over 80 km per hour on roads and more than 40 km per hour off-road. Conventional engagement tactics required adjustment. Crews were instructed against following moving M18s via turret rotation. Instead, position turrets along anticipated paths of movement. Deploy infantry armed with Panzerfausts on the sides. Utilize artillery to pin down potential enemy spots. Refrain from chasing them, as M18s would invariably outpace German armor. However, these modifications yielded limited success. The M18's velocity edge was overwhelming, and German operators struggled to shift from ingrained doctrines favoring methodical, accurate shooting rather than swift reactions honed over years of practice. The Buick Motor Division produced 2,517 M18 units from July 1943 through October 1944. Output reached a high of 297 vehicles in November 1943. Initial orders aimed for 8,986 machines, but numbers were scaled back as victory loomed and tank destroyer concepts shifted. Each M18 carried a 1943 price tag of $55,930, a premium driven by its custom power plant and drivetrain, yet feasible for large-scale assembly via U.S. auto sector methods. In comparison, a German Panther demanded about 117,100 Reichsmarks and far more labor hours owing to its intricate final drive and gearbox. From inception, the M18 prioritized efficient manufacturing. The R975 radial engine on the right side was already churning out for planes and sundry uses. The torque converter gearbox eased driver instruction needs, and open-top turret streamlined assembly. Off-the-shelf car parts filled roles where feasible. At the Tank Destroyer Training Center in Camp Hood, Texas, curricula tailored to M18 operators diverged from standard tank schooling. Driver sessions highlighted fast handling, quick starts and stops, and making the most of landscapes. Operate with just 25 mm on the turret face and a mere 13 mm along hull flanks, it fell prey to nearly all Axis anti-armor arms, from 20 mm flak pieces up close, 37 mm guns regardless of distance, Panzerfaust blasts, shell splinters, to even 50 caliber rounds hitting side plates nearby. Such fragility dictated M18 usage entirely. Protocols stressed avoiding halts in sight of foes, steer clear of city fights that curb velocity, hold at least 500 meters from hostile foot soldiers, leverage cover non-stop, pair with foot troops to neutralize enemy AT threats. Operators cultivated acute environmental sensitivity, perpetually sweeping for dangers and bolt paths. As the conflict closed, M18 outfitted tank destroyer outfits logged these confirmed tallies. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion tallied 106 foe tanks destroyed, the 603rd claimed 92, the 69th secured 67, the 705th notched 89, the 85th recorded 51. Broad figures showed a peak of 540 M18s active in March 1945. Battlefield attrition hit 216 units. The destruction-to-loss rate stood at 2.3.1 across Europe. Typical fight distance averaged 650 meters. Mean clash length was 2.3 minutes. Though the 2.31 ratio held merit, it lagged behind doctrinal hopes. Notably, M18s devoted roughly 70% of frontline hours to aiding foot soldiers instead of stalking armor. Core tenets of tank destroyer theory, anticipating waves of hostile heavies, largely missed the mark. The Italian front brought unique hurdles. The 85th Tank Destroyer Battalion, running M18s amid rugged peaks, found the Hellcat's agility still beneficial in confined spaces. Units dashed swiftly across endangered zones via serpentine highland paths where bulkier rigs faltered. In Gothic line clashes, M18s sped to vantage points, struck at German machines in the depths below, then shifted positions. Before the enemy's counter-battery fire could even arrive, the German troops stationed in Italy, used to the typically sluggish advances of Allied units across rugged landscapes, found themselves caught off guard time and again by the swift reactions of the M18s. An assessment from German headquarters at the operational level pointed out, adversary tank destroyers show a knack for quickly massing at vulnerable spots. Their rapid repositioning hampers any solid counterfire efforts. The 637th Tank Destroyer Battalion deployed M18s to the Pacific Theater, where they took part in operations across the Philippines. Facing scant Japanese armored opposition, these machines mainly handled demolishing bunkers and backing up foot soldiers. The exposed turret design nearly spelled doom when up against Japanese close-quarters infantry assaults. To counter this 9-cylinder, air-cooled aviation power plant boasted an outstanding power-to-weight balance. Initial variants, the C-1, output 350 horsepower, whereas upgraded C-4 models pushed 400 horsepower. The air-cooled approach dodged fragile radiators and fluid lines. The turret's hydraulic rotation, driven by an electric motor linked to a pump, ensured a steady 15 degrees per second turn, unaffected by engine revs or the vehicle's motion. This gave it a clear edge over the Germans' hand-cranked mechanisms. The M18's battlefield legacy deeply shaped the evolution of armored designs after the war. Although the tank destroyer concept was scrapped and its units dissolved in November 1945, the Hellcat's proof that agility could offset thin protection echoed worldwide. The Soviets crafted the PT-76 as a lightweight amphibious tank, and eventually the BMP series of troop carriers, both stressing quickness. The British launched the CVR-T family, designed for rapid scouting duties. France produced the AMX-13, incorporating an autoloader to cut down on mass. Germany shifted with the Leopard 1, ditching thick plating for nimbleness. This marked a total shift from the heavy defense mindset of World War II. Today's wheeled anti-tank platforms, such as Italy's Centauro, Japan's Type 16, and the U.S. M128 Stryker-based gun system, carry forward the M18's ideas, trading toughness for battlefield speed and positioning. What stopped the Germans, famous for their battlefield creativity, from handling the M18 well? A mix of issues played a role, starting with stiff tactical thinking. German armored training drilled in careful distant marksmanship. Teams devoted years to honing accurate firing methods that fell flat versus elusive, shifting foes. Gear shortcomings factored in too. The Germans' turret turns relied on engine output and lagged behind the M18's reliable hydraulic setup. When idling or running slow, their tanks struggled badly against side-flanking M18s. The mental jolt hit hard as well. German crews had dominated most Allied tanks without fear. Turning from hunter to hunted carried a heavy toll. Radio failures added chaos. Already jammed by Allied signals, their comms couldn't keep up with platoon-level M18 maneuvers. In after-action talks gathered by the U.S. Army's Military History Institute, M18 operators always highlighted velocity as their key to staying alive. Staff Sergeant Vernon Miller of the 85th Tank Destroyer Battalion said, "We followed 3 guidelines: fire quick, shift quick, decide quick. Nail all 3 and you'd make it back. Miss even one and you wouldn't." Technical Sergeant John Patterson from the 603rd Tank Destroyer Battalion noted, "The Hellcat wasn't built for even matches. It thrived on lopsided ones tipping our way. We'd strike where they least suspected, at the worst moment for them, and vanish before they figured it out." Private First Class Robert Chen of the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion recalled, "Each time I got into our M18, I felt like I was in a flimsy metal box, but it was a box that hit 55 Fahrenheit. That pace pulled me through more scrapes than plates ever could." The M18's wartime figures paint a nuanced picture. On mobility, peak velocity of 55 km, oder 5 km/h on paved routes, off-road pace of 26 km/h, 42 km/h, 0 to 30 mph in 11 seconds, 150-mile range on 75 gallons of gas, ground pressure at 10.5 psi, lighter than plenty of haulers. In action, roughly 2.4 kills per unit against enemy armor, typical combat lifespan of 67 days, reliability holding up for 200 miles before big repairs. Crew survival rate when vehicle destroyed, approximately 73% of enemy armor it encountered. These figures highlight both the vehicle's advantages and its limitations. The impressive crew survival rate stemmed from the M18's remarkable velocity, allowing operators to frequently evade danger after taking a hit. However, the brief duration of engagements in battle underscored the fragility of its light plating. The legacy of the M18 Hellcat reaches far beyond individual machines, shaping core principles in contemporary military strategy. The interval from detection to firing. Current operations prioritize swift responses to threats, echoing the M18's hit-and-run maneuvers. Defensive countermeasures. Advanced shielding technologies today seek to mimic the Hellcat's evasion through agility, dodging incoming fire instead of withstanding it. Integrated battlefield networks. The coordinated strikes by M18 units from various angles foreshadowed today's interconnected warfare tactics, uneven countermeasures. The M18 illustrated that outmatching foes technologically doesn't demand equivalent hardware. It involves neutralizing their advantages altogether. As one of the most groundbreaking armored assets of World War II, the M18 Hellcat emerged from U.S. manufacturing prowess and strategic ingenuity, upending traditional views on tank engagements. German crews, drilled to overpower opponents with thicker plating and heavier guns, found their approaches disrupted by American ingenuity that redefined the rules of the game. The Hellcat's maximum velocity of 55 mph transcended mere engineering feats. It represented a revolutionary approach that German strategies struggled to counter. The M18 demonstrated that in conflict, much like in the wild, endurance isn't solely for the mightiest or the best equipped. Often, it belongs to the quickest, the nimblest, and the most versatile. Panzer operators, seeing their precise volleys fall short against fleeing M18s, absorbed this reality time and again amid the chaos of French fields, the icy woods of the Ardennes, and the climactic clashes inside Germany. In modern analyses by defense scholars, the M18 Hellcat appears not merely as an effective anti-tank platform, but as a pinnacle of U.S. martial creativity, spotting adversary advantages and dismantling them via unorthodox methods. Enemy armored forces from the 113th Panzer Brigade, the 2nd Panzer Division, and numerous other formations never anticipated the American Hellcat's 55 mph capability until confronting it head-on. This element of surprise, paired with clever maneuvers and skilled personnel, forged a combat tool that surpassed its physical design. Ultimately, the M18 Hellcat transformed the equations of mechanized warfare. It showed that safeguarding didn't necessitate heavy shielding, that destructive power didn't hinge on the largest cannon, and that control of the field could arise from swift movement rather than sheer bulk. At 55 mph, it not only outpaced German panzers, but also outmaneuvered their entire operational philosophy. The spirit of the M18 continues to influence strategic deliberations today. Whenever tacticians opt for agility over fortification, leaders stress rapid execution over meticulous setup, or engineers embrace exposure for enhanced capability, the Hellcat's wisdom resonates across generations. At times, the strongest defense lies in evading the opponent's aim. Members of the 113th Panzer Brigade, the 2nd Panzer Division, and scores of additional groups came to grasp this truth through harsh combat experiences. They encountered a rival unwilling to engage by their playbook, one that converted their assets into liabilities that attacked and melted away like shadows in the mist. They realized U.S. advancement wasn't about crafting superior panzers. It involved devising something radically new, something so rapid that it eluded their doctrines, their drills, and their aiming mechanisms. The M18 Hellcat, 55 mph of bold American resolve, endures as evidence that in battle, velocity can serve as the supreme arsenal. German panzer crews remained unaware of the American Hellcat's such velocities. Once they discovered it, the outcome was inevitable. The conflict's defeat extended beyond the front lines into the domain of vision, where U.S. innovators boldly swapped protection for pace, birthing a pursuer that preyed upon predators.